There is such a range of people who come. There are people who have been coming for years, and they come back because it's the 1 week a year that really they have that relationship with these other people. They have that relationship. They know it's a week they can pray and they can sing, and the music is actually going to uplift them and sustain them for the year, as is the camaraderie. Other people, I get calls all the time, especially in the months, well, actually all year, but in the months before the Colloquium. Well, I'm a new Catholic, and one of the things I really love is the music I think I've heard in some Catholic parishes, but I'm not hearing it at the one I'm in now, but I really like the priests and I like the people, but how can I make a difference?
You know that hardly a day goes by when I don't receive an email from somebody, mostly always a young person, a person in high school, early college years. They say, look, I'm getting interested in this chant idea, and I have several of my friends want to do it also. We want to get together and sing it. We'd like to know how. What do we do? We want to sing for our school chapel. We want to sing for our school masses. And these scholars are forming all over the country. And this is new. I would date it from about the last 5 years. We run a national registry of Gregorian chant. The new scholars are appearing every day.
I think it's a wonderful conference. We've had people from literally all around the world. We had people from Australia attending. I think in the past we had people from Singapore. So it's not just across the United States. We always had the occasional Canadian meandering south here, but it's really attracted a lot of people, and a lot of people that come anew, that come here for the first time, and are just amazed about the beauty of the liturgy and the music.
The colloquium is simply to bring into what we're doing a greater number of people, to encourage them to take back to their parishes the notion that the liturgy has to be beautiful and it has to be sacred. If we can accomplish that, then we're really satisfied that that's what we're up to.
When we first got here, we immediately jumped into learning chant. It wasn't as if we waited. It was immediately that we started learning. The teachers exposed us to some great music, some very difficult pieces. But we got a broad spectrum of everything, from Haydn, from motets, to Gregorian chant. So we got a little bit of everything when it came to the traditional music. And I thought that was very impressive that they exposed us to a little bit of everything.
That's what I like too. It's not a conference that's based upon just talking about. It's about doing. Everyone sings.
Right.
So my voice is not. We all sing. I give you a voice that everyone's singing together, and there's a sense. Even the watershed staff with the cameras joining in as well, and there's a sense that we're all called to be part of this liturgy. So there's a.
And it's interesting when people come in and they see all this happening, all these people, 250 people, whatever it is, and this great organization and beautiful music packets, and everything's just moving along so well. And we have a wonderful director of programs who oversees everything. And they assume that this organization called the CMAA must have a lot of money, must have a huge staff, must have big offices, and none of which is true. None of it is true.
It's a bunch of hardworking volunteers who love what they do.
That's what it is. And what a difference that makes.
It does make all the difference.
Yeah, it does.
It's when you love what you do.
Colloquium is something very special, and the people who come here often say that the Colloquium is a life-changing experience.
Our very first Mass was totally overwhelming to me. My life was changed in that first worship experience, and it has just been better every day since then.
Lots of things have changed in 2 years. The movement has grown. The movement for chant has grown. All sorts of new resources are available to people. There's a new generation out there. People are singing more and more. There are now, I think, every year 24 workshops in Gregorian chant around the country. 5 years ago, I think maybe there's 1 or 2, typically per year. So things are changing dramatically. The momentum is really very striking.
I was sitting outside Loyola Chapel, which is right along the lake, literally, and I was sitting on the wall there, and the church doors were open, and the music was just flowing out, and there was this lovely piece by Brahms. It was a German piece, and I just heard it, and just was watching the lake and the water rippling, and I just started crying. There was nobody else there. It was so lovely. I think there were several other times too. During the Holy Hour on Thursday, they sang this Tantum Ergo by Kevin Allen, which just took my breath away. I was crying that time too. But those 2 times the most.
I've been using chant and chant-like material, and I needed to learn it from experts in person and in the context of a liturgy. It's very dry, very useless to just learn it in the classroom situation or by yourself or from an academic approach. It would be like trying to find joy and going to a jewelry store and looking at the wedding rings. I want to go to the wedding.
When the Second Vatican Council's document on the liturgy, Sacrosanctum Concilium, says that the treasury of sacred music is of greater value than any other art. That is a very heavy statement to make.
At the Colloquium, we're able, because we have 250 people together, almost all of the musicians of varying strengths and weaknesses, we're able to mount, if you will, a mass in the context of a workshop or retreat. People will use both of these words when they describe the Colloquium. And we will have a beautiful mass on a day at which participants of the Colloquium will, in turn, sing the introit of the Mass, or perhaps the polyphonic ordinary of the Mass, or perhaps they won't be singing anything that day. Although, as you know, living through this week, it's rare that someone at the Colloquium is not singing something at Mass. That's quite rare, in fact. And as a participant in that Mass, they are able to sing the music proper to the Mass, either the proper chant or the ordinary of the Mass, and at the same time observe the liturgy. Because with all of these people involved in the Colloquium, there's plenty of time to see what's going on, to let it sink in, to hear other choirs singing. And so the learning experience, I think, is the most important part of the Colloquium at these beautiful Masses which we have every day, presented in a paradigmatic way, we hope, but because of the nature of a Colloquium, when you put 250 people together for 6 days, maybe the music is perfect, maybe it isn't, but that's all right. We're all working toward the same goal, which is the beauty of music and the beauty of liturgy, in service to the Mass.
The instructors for CMAA have been wonderful in bringing those of us who are beginning in this chant arena to learn and to appreciate and to be able to really pray and proclaim Gregorian chant.
How do you address people to say, well, look, Dr. Martin, I grant you the idea, I grant this is the music of the Church, this is the music of Vatican II, but we just don't have any singers who can do this. It's just beyond our reach.
They have to learn. You have to teach them. You have to start small, but you see, it's that thing of having caution and persistence. Yeah. You have to continue to teach them, and they'll learn. These are people who can handle a fancy program on a computer.
Yeah.
They're not incapable of learning.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
And our whole society is geared to having us do extremely difficult things. We worried a little bit about when we got to 250 people that we'd have to divide you into 5 different choirs, and you would have only the opportunity of singing 1/5 of the time at the Mass. But I think there's an advantage to that, because now you can experience the music as those in your pews experience it. You can evaluate the effect and the use of various kinds of music in the liturgy as a worshiper, as well as a choir member. And I think that is a thing that you will value taking home. I find myself in the embarrassing position of not really knowing very much about what other people do in church, because I'm always busy on Sunday morning. And so it's an opportunity to have a chance to experience and reflect upon and ask the questions, how does this work? Why does it work? Why should it be used?
Today I didn't sing the Dies Irae, I read it. I was actively listening, and I participated in the Dies Irae like I never did before. I was able to pray through it and not have to fuss with neumes. In the end of Mass today, there was a procession that was unaccompanied. After a Requiem Mass and listening to the footsteps approaching me, it was a catechism on the priest being the persona Christi, coming closer and closer to me. It was terrifying. It was wonderful, but that was very profound. Moment of silence set such a wonderful tone in the presentation, in the declamation of the psalm. When I began using that and using the chapel psalms and their great modal accompaniments, I noticed a profound silence in our church. I used that pause, and there was no rustling of booklets or coughing. And I stopped and even listened to the silence, and I said, they're participating.
Even at breakfast and lunch and during kind of quiet moments, people are helping each other as well.
Right. That's about the only free time, actually, because we're working and praying and singing and attending liturgies all day.
Asking questions of the priests or asking questions of the directors. That's what I really loved. There was a spirit of such positive fraternal collaboration. It was not a big hierarchical thing where we're listening to the professors, there's some elaborate thing. You had breakfast with your professor, and I'd watch, like, Wilco or the others, talking just very informally at breakfast with some people who wanted to learn more or asking questions of him, and there was just this spirit of fraternal collaboration, which was really very impressive to see.
Right there in measure 19, sopranos, and Sanctus, Sanctus, Sanctus. Yeah, that happens if there's only 1 hour between breakfast and lunch. My mother never permitted those kind of things, but...
And I was especially touched by those young priests and older priests who were also saying, well, I didn't have much Latin in the seminary, or I wasn't exposed to much of this, but I want to do it. This is where the church is. I feel called in prayer to learn more about this, and for them to come to this colloquium and to try to learn how to sing these parts as well for the first time is very beautiful.
Right.
I mean, really wonderful.
It's an amazing thing. And another thing that's a reality for many priests, well, seminarians especially, is that not everyone can get to the colloquium easily. There's a matter of travel, which
expense,
costs money.
time, permission.
Time. It's a week away from work.
Yeah.
Permission away from work, or whatever your obligations are.
Sure.
And it's a huge sacrifice for everyone to come.
Yeah.
But I would venture to say that most people, almost all people who leave, don't regret it.
No.
It's a huge investment. It's not an expense, it's an investment.
And whether the priest is musically talented or not, I think any number of us can do one note. Unless there's something physically wrong with our eardrums or something physically wrong with my vocal cords, everyone can learn to sing. Part of it is developing some confidence, part of it is just over time and practice developing some comfortableness with it, but it's very important that the priest become the prayer leader of the assembly and to invite them into a greater and deeper mystery. If the priest sings his part, and then the choir and congregation sings their part, all of these parts can be received as integral to the liturgy. If the priest doesn't sing his part, if he just speaks his part, and the choir and congregation sings their part, somehow those parts seem a little bit more extraneous to the liturgy itself, when in fact you should be singing the liturgy, not singing at liturgy. Well, the best way to be received as singing the liturgy is to be collaborating with the priest in a song liturgy. And he's the one who leads that by singing his parts. What I've discovered as a priest is that singing, whether it's an ancient melody that's got some fluidity like, "The Lord be with you," or simply just, "The Lord be with you," what it does is it raises the level of the event to something that's outside the ordinary. It makes it sacred language, it lifts it out of the ordinary, and it makes it clear to myself and to the people in the pews that what we're about to enter into is a sacred mystery. So, "The Lord be with you and also with you. Lift up your hearts. We lift them up to the Lord." Provides a moment which is different from any normal human speech. You can always see on EWTN television many of the masses that are celebrated by Pope Benedict. When you see him celebrating the Mass, what you see is a crucifix on the altar. And not only that, but he is looking intently at that crucifix the whole time that he is celebrating the Mass. And so there is a focus upon a transcendent object even there. And you see, this then makes a solution to the question of, should the priest engage the crowd? Should he animate the congregation by his personal liturgical style. And I would suggest that there is a transcendent object that replaces that notion.
One thing that struck me when I first came to the Colloquium, and I've talked to many people this week who feel the same way, an individual here always feels as if he or she is not very good by comparison to the other people attending. Have you found that? People come up to you and say, I'm really no good at this, you know, I'm terrible. But almost everybody says that. But together, there's this glorious result. You'd swear that every single person singing is just, you know, the greatest thing ever.
But these people, the ones you describe, are the ones who are brave enough to come because they want to learn something. They want to learn something about Gregorian chant, about how to sing it, or maybe even what Gregorian chant is for. What is the function or the purpose of Gregorian chant? Or maybe they want to learn how to teach chant a little bit. Maybe they have a little school of 3 guys or 3 women, and they want to be able to do this a little bit. Also, people who are interested in the polyphonic school of centuries and centuries. You know, some people will say, I've always loved to hear my recordings of the Masses of Palestrina or Victoria. And I saw those videos online, and I wanted to do that too, and I wasn't sure that I could do it. And invariably, they come and they can do it. So the people who come to this conference are the ones who are brave enough to do it.
In 1993, I was listening to a radio program called Millennium of Music, and they played a gorgeous Palestrina motet. Well, I'd never heard anything like that before in my life, and I just sat there and I thought, my gosh, what is that music? This is so incredibly beautiful. And I started listening to this program. Well, I started recording from the radio and learning about Palestrina and Victoria and Tallis and Bird and all those kinds of guys. And then I was fortunate enough to become part of a group that began singing Renaissance music about 12 years ago. So I've loved it ever since. And I got interested in chant about 4 years ago when I went to a workshop in Auburn. So it's just sort of progressed, you know, first just loving it and then having the incredible good fortune to have the opportunity to sing it.
The first time I came, I thought, well, I'm a terrible singer. And during the week, there's an element of suffering that takes place for the individual. Through the music, it seems impossible, and yet you sing it. The chant, it seems incomprehensible, and yet you do it. But you leave, and you find yourself back now as an individual, or maybe 2 or 3 people in your own parish environment, and suddenly you make a remarkable discovery. You've improved.
That's right. In fact, a fellow in my chant choir told me at lunch today that he had been studying the Liber Usualis and various books about chant for years, and until he reached the conclusion of this week, he never felt as though he was able to sing a chant of any difficulty with real confidence. And tomorrow, he's singing the Gradual for Sunday.
Oh, can you imagine?
Yeah, the Gradual. Yeah. With his choir, of course, of 40 men, 50 men.
Right.
But he was telling me how important that was, that here I am, I'm going to sing Sunday's Gradual.
People, too, who have little training in music at all, and they're afraid to come because they think, well, there's going to be all these professional musicians there.
Oh, no.
How can I possibly get up and sing along with them? And I often think, especially in the case of chant, if you have no formal training in music, it's like a child learning a language for the first time.
Sure.
Like a 1-year-old, 2-year-old starts to speak.
Absolutely.
You know, you'll learn the chant. If you already have an education in music, you will bring that, you can inform your new lessons in chant with what you already know.
Sure.
But you might have to do a lot of translating in your mind.
Absolutely.
Again, I think, you know, that it's been said that it's like immersion. You know, immersion is the best way to learn a language. Yep. And so some people who have never had any experience, they fare fairly well, I'd say very well, at the Colloquium.
Colloquium and seeing the real friendships and collegiality, and there's something quite graceful.
Well, you know what, Daniel, it's very interesting to me that people come to the Colloquium expecting, are worried that maybe we're just a kind of a crappy bunch, you know, that we're just upset that things aren't quite the way they were in the old days or something. Well, the truth is that most people involved in CMAA, we don't even know what the old days were. You know, I mean, most of us were born during or after the council. So in any case, at the culture of our events, you don't have any of the bitterness that people will sometimes ascribe to this, you know, but everybody's exuberant and happy and hopeful, and as you say, working together as a team to try to do something in whatever small way we possibly can at our local parishes or at the national level or in any other way to assist in bringing music to the Mass that's sacred, that's beautiful, that's truly universal.
If we lose a couple of altos before the Kyrie, we're not going to be happy. That's great. Yeah. Oh, drive me right up.
They look at it and go, I saw this at the Colloquium. Several people who came in the chapel, it was very touching. You could tell that they were palpably moved by the music. And it was a genuine beauty, not some artificial thing, but something beautiful. And of course, the other beautiful thing really about the Colloquium, which was really very special, and you could see how saliently, in an intangible way, beautiful the music is that you have these friends and people who come back year after year, and these friendships are really quite strong, these bonds based upon this mutual love of this great repertoire.
That's right. Well, and that's part of what the CMAA strives to do. We try to become something like an infrastructure of support for these people who desperately need it. They need to know that other people are engaged in the same project. They need to know about their frustrations, about the difficulties, and how to overcome them, how to find the workaround. And there always are difficulties in the area of church music.
Reinforcing the idea that I'm not alone. There are other people who feel like me. They want to do the same thing. Maybe most of the folks are here at a higher skill level than me. I just sing music. But that and being able to work with professionals because my skill level isn't as good as it should be, particularly when it comes to polyphony. This is, like I say, really the only chance I get to do chant and polyphony.
And it's a special kind of camaraderie where a lot of the musicians come with a fairly high level of skill and a high level of obedience to the magisterium. It's rare to find both, and I feel like it's a 1-2 punch where skilled musician plus living in the heart of the church. Having something in common with everybody there, despite the fact that people are from here from all corners of the globe, literally, and majority from the U.S. though, and the fact that everybody loves the same thing, you're all here for the same purpose, and you're all getting the same thing out of it. It's amazing. It really brings home the fact that the church is universal, at least to me.
And they find themselves thrilled and with new friends too, right? I mean, this
friendships
are
formed here forever.
Forever.
It's a very, very happy crowd.
Yeah, it is. And what about the opportunity to share stories with people? You know, people go the whole year feeling alone, you know? You can be in a parish where the music is driving you crazy for some reason. That often happens. But you're not sure you don't see a way out, and you're not sure that there are other people who may agree with you, that there's got to be something better. You come here and people share stories, and constructive stories, right?
Very much so.
Yeah, it's not just a bunch of
That's right, we find like-minded people. This is certainly a colloquium of like-minded people of all walks of life. Professional musicians. This year we had some stars, some very famous people who were attending the colloquium and performing at the colloquium by playing the organ. And we had people who had never been to anything like this in their life, never been to a chant workshop, or maybe taken a class in Renaissance polyphony or anything. And here they are, and they're singing that music at Mass every day.
Right. And they get together and they talk to their friends. They say, well, how did you go about introducing the Kyrie in your parish? What edition of which Mass setting of the Sanctus did you start with? And that is just
the collegiality.
Yeah, the collegiality.
You can see it's just like a match.
And people are looking to improve things, right? It's not just grumbling. Don't you hate this? Don't you hate that?
No.
It's always directed towards how to improve things, constructive stuff.
I feel like this is the best possible opportunity to immerse yourself in a whole week of nothing but incredible sacred music, incredible presenters who really know what they're talking about, and I think the best thing about it is that you're surrounded by people who think the same way as you do. They're on board with what the Church teaches about sacred music. They don't have any questions about it. They don't have any problems with singing in Latin, so it's like heaven.
Then came the change of language. Pastor called me in and said, next Sunday I'm putting all my parts into English. When are you putting yours? And I said, well, as soon as we can find music that's worth replacing what we have in Latin. And he said, that will be fine. Without realizing was that my answer was, probably never.
I believe that the use of the vernacular in the liturgy is a gift for us to enable us to understand a little bit better the mystery that we're entering into. But it wasn't, I don't believe, the intent of the Council to completely strip away the Latin or to make us think that it is all about understanding, because I think it was St. Augustine who told us that if you can understand it, it's not God.
Catholic musicians need to ask themselves, what are they doing? What are we seeking to do? Are we seeking to bring the world into the church? Or are we seeking to assist in the creation of something completely different? Something that when you walk into the church, you hear a sound, you think, okay, that is holy, that is beautiful, that is something special, something unique that I can't get anywhere else, you know. And that's what sacred music offers. It offers a radical difference, and it's a radical project, and it's a progressive project in many ways.
We take something special like Latin and then cherish it. You grab that text and hold it up to the choir and say, what do you see? And it was like a diamond, and someone said, I see yellow, I see green, I see blue. We all had something different to say about it, and we were all looking at the same thing. That's a sign of real poetry. Latin is a wonderful language for poetry.
We have opted for the paradigm. We know that you don't use Latin in all of your liturgies, or perhaps very many of them, in fact. But perhaps that you are adding a little bit more Latin from time to time.
when he did sing it, someone came upstairs, a member of the congregation, and said, "Does your choir understand Latin?" And I said, "Not really, but we talk about it." He says, "I can tell by the way they sing that they understand what they're singing." I would say I'd give good credit to this colloquium for that.
I asked him if we could do it in Latin, or at least part of it in Latin. So I brought my Liber Usualis with me that I had from a friend that had been rescued from a convent that was being closed. So my Liber is full of little pencil marks where the nuns have, they obviously spent a lot of time practicing. So I sang Credo 4 from the Liber for my, because of course, you have to say the creed, or in my case, sing the creed. And so that's what I did at my confirmation.
We need to recapture this universal language of music that we share in common as Catholics. And it's tragic that there are too many people that haven't grown up in this. But it's not going to be true for very much longer. Things are dramatically changing right now. The ground is shifting, I think. And I think if we look 10 years from now, we're going to see a remarkable difference even still.
On one Sunday, to have turned everything back into Latin is going to be a cold shower on an entire congregation.
Right.
And it's not only going to be a cold shower, it's going to be an empty church.
Right.
And so they have to be educated, and they have to be educated gradually.
Some people want to go home, like they might go to a conference or a trade show. They want to go home with a bag of tricks. They're going to immediately make changes that are, evident right away. That may not be the case. It may take more time, because studying chant and liturgical music, it's a lifetime study.
I believe myself that the proper thing to do in most cases and in most parishes is to simply start by adding a piece of Gregorian chant in the course of the normal Mass. Because I think that over a period of time, the repetition of these Gregorian pieces will prove fruitful.
Yeah.
The repetition of these pieces will incorporate them into people's mentality. My eye doctor, he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I direct this Gregorian chant choir." And he said, "Oh, Gregorian chant, I love to listen to Gregorian chant. Where do you do it?" "Well, we do it on the church down on this corner, street corner down there." And he said, "Oh, do you sing it in church?" So he didn't really, he only had a kind of an aesthetic appreciation for it. And that's not bad. It might, in fact, sometime lead him to stick his nose in church and find out what it's about. Music has the capability of evoking a place and a context. Cocktail music, it takes only an instant of cocktail music for you to know exactly where you are. Or military music. You know exactly why military music is the way it is because you have to march to it. And there's no mistaking it.
Yeah.
Gregorian chant is pure liturgical music, and there's no mistaking it. But there are reasons why military music is precise rhythmically. There are reasons why Gregorian chant has a kind of irregular rhythm. It doesn't have a strong beat, because a strong beat conveys the sense of the regular passage of time. And a non-strong beat and a non-regular beat conveys a sense of the extension of time, and therefore conveys a sense, at least an intimation, of eternity. And that's why we have liturgical music. It was as if somebody said, the reason you're coming to church is heaven.
We're expected to say, well, you're okay, I'm okay, and what you think is okay, because even though it's wrong, because that's your opinion. And of course, in America, opinion is sacrosanct. On the other hand, as a Catholic, we have this hierarchy, and we have this inconvenient notion of right and wrong, and all these inconvenient rules that tell us what we're supposed to do. There's very little room for opinion on one side or another of whether you are supposed to do "Let there be peace on earth" for the communion. So that mindset is very difficult to overcome with the congregation and with the choir. Again, because of the mindset of the sanctity of personal opinion, it is easy for people to take offense when they find out that what they've been doing for the last 25 years in supposedly sacred music is all wrong. It's a difficult thing to take. It was difficult for me to take because I was under the impression that I was more or less satisfying the rubrics, but I wasn't. So I'm correcting that.
We have been told for 40 years that Gregorian chant has pride of place in the Roman Rite. And I've often wondered what on earth pride of place means. It could just mean the kind of place that you give an old uncle at the table and you don't let him say anything. It has pride of place on the shelf somehow or the other. But you go back to the Latin text of Sacrosanctum Concilium and it says, principum locum. It has first place. Gregorian chant is the principal music of the Roman Rite.
We did them at a workshop a couple of weeks ago, and you know, the eyes, after you finish, I had a group of about 40, 45 people, something like that, after we finished singing the first time through, and the eyes were just like big, like, what did we just do? That was amazing. And I said, what do you think about that? And a lady in the back said, it sounds like prayer. And everybody said, yeah, that's it. It was like prayer.
I think a lot of music directors are not prepared to do to put together the kind of music that the church is asking. They may not have the music background, and even if they do have the music background, they don't necessarily have the support of the pastor or the music committee or liturgy committee at the parish. I think the biggest challenge is that everybody needs to be on the same page and be familiar with the church documents.
Sanctus. Wilco Brammers from the Netherlands. To see the insight that he brings is really amazing. It's really awe-inspiring, and it's not because he sounds authoritative, but he has such a wonder. He has such a sense of wonder about him that allows him to make links between the music that he teaches and this is not an understatement, really the rest of creation.
He has a real gift for illustrating with analogies or visualizations how things should be interpreted. He told us in Auburn that the little melisma in the Ambrosian Gloria should be like, said, imagine you have a bird in your hands and you release it into the air. Well, that was very captivating, and it really illustrated perfectly how that passage should be sung.
A little more espressivo on Gloria
Gloria. Not by stressing, but by taking your time for gl.
He has a particular ability to create a vision for a singer, whether it be sacred polyphony or chant, that allows them to experience the music in their body and then in its proclamation, that I haven't experienced with any other director. And being a singer for so many years, I've sung under a lot of conductors. And the grace of God is on that man, and he has done such amazing work with us.
He has a wonderful smile. He is very patient, very gentle, and he explains things so well.
I really feel that you feel the pulse. But not every pulse needs full sound. Sometimes it's between. Ta-di, ta-di. Pulse is not an accent. Pulse is that's the pulse. You shouldn't hear it. Just imagine that you would hear all our hearts beating. What a terrible noise that would be. And that's the problem with a lot of pop music. You hear the beating through everything. And the miracle of Renaissance music is the pulse is very strong, but you don't hear it. It's there.
In an average parish, you can't just plop a solemn high mass down onto a congregation. They will be running for the doors if they don't understand what it's about. You see, that's been one of our weaknesses, that we haven't really persuaded the people about what this was for. Why Catholics Can't Sing should have had a title, Why Catholics Won't Sing. And the answer is because they don't see why the heck they should.
What the Church asks of us and what we attempt to do in our parishes is not going to be understood or appreciated by everyone. In fact, as far as immediate gratification is concerned, we follow someone who died on a cross. And so it's simply not going to be about our successes on this day or the next day or the next week. It is about being faithful.
I think we have to be very charitable and kind, because it's very easy to get caught into these people don't understand what the church wants, and it makes us upset. And so, it's really up to us. We have to convert hearts and minds. We're not going to change things until we can do that. And we can't do that by being angry, by being irritable with people, by being impatient. We have to tell them it's not their fault, that they don't understand. The church really does speak about sacred music. Music directors don't know that. 95% of the music directors in the United States probably don't know what propers are. And it's not their fault. No one has ever taught them. So we have to teach, and we have to be Christian about it.
The notion of gradualism, then, is that you take an existing parish mass and you gradually improve it. This is actually taking place in many churches over the country now. I'm amazed to see just how many places people say, oh yes, we started to sing the Gregorian Sanctus or Agnus Dei.
He was just saying, look, Rome wasn't built in a day. I inherited a parish that didn't have much training. And so this year we worked on this aspect of the Mass.
Right.
We started incorporating these changes, which involves training people, training the whole congregation, the whole parish. And then the next year we worked on this. And he was describing it kind of 4 years in. I think he'd been working on it for 4 years or so. And he was kind of describing his 10-year plan. And there was this sense of, he said, look, you despair if you said it's hopeless, I can't do anything. So you just see what you can do, and you start and incrementally.
Right. And maybe you're a singer and you go to the Colloquium and saying you're investing, your time as a singer. Maybe you're a music director.
Sure.
And you want to learn more about chant. You want to learn how to conduct something you haven't been able to conduct in the past. You want to learn about how to make the small choir you have a better tone, a better sound. So we have different sessions that address all of those needs, all toward the same goal.
Many people who come here can't imagine that in their entire life they would be the director of a schola. Next week, they will go home and they'll be doing this and directing.
That's right. It's absolutely true. Yeah. We have courses in conducting chant, in singing chant, in learning chant, in teaching chant.
Right.
And then we have the experience of singing the chant at Mass. This is what the Colloquium is all about.
This experience has shown me a window to heaven through sacred worship, sacred music, sacred liturgy that everyone needs to see. Everyone needs to experience it.
There's a view out there that Catholic parishes are not going to pay their musicians. They're glad to have anybody show up and sing something that sounds vaguely like the Gloria or the Sanctus or Holy, Holy, Holy. Musicians are busy people. They just want to show up to Mass and sing. Why should they undertake this task? Why should a person go to the trouble?
Because divine worship is the highest activity a human being can encounter, can undertake. And it should be done with the greatest degree of excellence.
At the end of the Colloquium, everyone is always surprised that he or she has accomplished that. How could I have done that? How did it happen that we had a Missa Quartitoni by Victoria? I never thought I would be able to sing a Mass like that. I've never sung a Mass like that before. How is it possible?
It was during the communion that I actually was almost to the verge of tears. Not so much because of the music, because I felt inadequate. I felt all this weight on me. Lord, I can't do this. This is too much. And then I heard this voice say, remember the story of Moses in the burning bush. Moses was the same way. Lord, I can't lead your people out of Egypt. I can't speak. I can't do this. And God said, I will be with you. That's something that's always stuck with me, just remembering that in all of this, God's going to be with us. It's a slow, painful process, and in all that, He knows what we're doing. I think He appreciates our efforts.
I was trying to explain how wonderful it was, and I was explaining to someone who thought it was kind of a bureaucratic conference, like people were talking about policy or music policy. I said, no, it's people who love music. There are all these singers, and they said, oh, they're excited about it? I said, oh, yeah. And I was trying to explain. I said, look, it's like Catholic Woodstock for Gregorian chant people. And he goes, really? I said, oh, yeah. I said, these hundreds of people who are just on fire for this stuff. They're singing, they're talking about it in the lunchroom. They're just, I said, it's like Woodstock for Gregorian chant.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah.
And but it's a genuine labor of love.
Right. It's always a positive agenda. Yeah. Always looking forward.
Always.
And being hopeful.
That's the key. And our organ
I think that's our cue right there.